Hello and welcome back to Market House, the show where we talk all things Disney. My name is Caleb and I'm the host. And thank you so much for kind of returning. We took a week off there due to a Disney trip. Had a kind of a short weekend trip. And when you're coming home late, super late on a Sunday and you got work the next day, you got a lot to catch up on. So took a week off just to kind of collect the thoughts, kind of marinate in what we just experienced. And so we've got a nice trip report for you. But to start off, we're going to go over some news. And it kind of, I feel like was kind of a slow news week. So we've got a couple of big stories, but then we'll just dive right into that trip report. All right, first up, we've got news coming out about Turning Red, which is the upcoming Pixar movie, the movie release. And it looks like it's actually going to get released on Disney Plus. So straight to streaming again for the poor folks at Pixar. And so it was supposed to be their big return to the big screen, right? A big return to the big screen. A lot of bigs in there. But unfortunately, COVID had other plans. And it looks like Disney's just calling it and saying, you know what, release it to the masses on Disney+. So you've got, let's just kind of look historically on what's happened with Pixar and the releases. We've got Soul, which I think was right when everything went crazy. They released that straight to streaming. You've got Luca that went straight to streaming. And then, again, Turning Red, which was supposed to be like all right, we're through this, folks. We're going back to the theater. And they were like, nah, that ain't going to happen. So what I think it's not only Omicron, however you want to pronounce it. It's not just that, but I also think it's due to Encanto's performance in the box office. Now, it's definitely no slouch. So far, worldwide, it's done $216 million, which is, a chunk of change for anybody. But, you look at production costs and you look at marketing, you always double that. So they're probably breaking even on Encanto or just over that. So it's a big risk to, essentially, they're saying probably the risk reward is kind of out of whack, and they're like, we'd rather just release it to and have really good content for Disney+. That's been a recent gripe of subscribers, is there's not a ton of new, I think, compelling content coming out on Disney+. I think Mandalorian comes out, and then you've got this giant just gap in decent content that releases. And of course, you got the Marvel releases like Hawkeye. So you've got a few there, but if you look at alternatives like HBO, Netflix, I feel like every week or every 2 weeks, there's a new show or a new movie coming out. Now, you can argue about the quality of those things, but at the same time, when people are paying monthly, they want to see stuff constantly being released. So I think in Disney's view, they're going, it's not worth it to just release it theatrically, because it's just not going to make enough to make it exclusive to that. Why don't we have a big shiny new object to either grow subscribers or keep subscribers over on Disney+. And let me go back to actually just to give you some context on Pixar box office history. So you've got Encanto at $216 million during a pandemic. And again, this I feel like is so not fair, because let me see if I can spit this out. The last theatrical release that was not affected by this pandemic, which is so crazy to think, was Toy Story 4. And that thing grossed $1 billion, over $1 billion. So that's the power of Pixar. That's the power of Pixar movies. Again, that's not really fair. I'm comparing to a sequel to a insanely successful franchise versus a original coming out, Turning Red, which has no history with people, so that may not have made as much. But let's say conservatively $500-600 million, that is not even close to what they've been doing recently because of this dang virus. So that is kind of what's going on over at Pixar. I know employees are upset. They've come out and made comments anonymously with, I think, Variety magazine or whatever. Is that a magazine anymore? Variety Online. And I can understand, right? You work, I think these people, they work years on these projects, and the big dream is to see your name up on that big screen at the movie theater. And unfortunately, it's just going straight to home streaming. So it is what it is. I think this is the new reality, honestly, for the entertainment industry. I think maybe a quarter of the movies that we're used to seeing, the amount of releases, I think we're going to see about 25% of those be successful in the theater. I just think people are now used to watching stuff at home, and I think people have invested a lot of money at their home setups. Like you can make a pretty decent home setup for not that much money anymore because just the techs come down in price. So yeah, I mean, you can start streaming this thing, Turning Red, on March 11th, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of looks like a weird movie. This girl, when she gets angry, turns into like this giant red panda. Sounds bizarre, but it's a Pixar film, so I'm sure it'll be good and heartfelt and all the things, right? All the feels. So you can watch Turning Red again starting on March 11th. And our final news item, it's a short one this week, folks, but unfortunately it affects your wallet. But Disney World food and drink prices have increased. Yay! More price increases. Everyone's favorite bit of news to hear. So it looks like they've increased prices on just food and drink. I don't think I've seen ticket increases, and I may be wrong on that, so don't quote me. But food and drink, that was the big headline for folks. And this was kind of out of the blue or kind of out of left field only because we do expect price increases every year. That's just kind of the nature of the beast with Disney. And I don't think it's just them. I think Universal, all of them have to increase prices because all the stuff. So we usually expect those things, but executives were asked point blank, I think at their last earnings call in quarter 4 of 21, going, hey, should we expect price increases? And they were like, no, not really. We may, one lady, I think it was our CFO, said, yeah, we're going to reduce portion sizes, and made some really bad joke about helping people's waistlines, and that fell flat, and I think there was some criticism after that comment. But yeah, they said basically no price increases, we don't think, but we may alter portion sizes and maybe reduce some offerings and blah, blah, blah. And then they just went ahead and increased prices. So we shouldn't be surprised, but it was a kind of like, okay, you said no, but whatever. So I have a few examples. I know more were released since I took a look, but here's just a few. So we've got Mickey's Premium Bar, those delicious ice cream bars you can find throughout the park. They went from $5.69 to $5.99, so 30 cents there. Trader Sam's, that bar, which in Disney World is at I think it's at the Polynesian. Man, don't quote me on that. I know it's not. It's at one of the resorts, right? It's not in a theme park at Disneyland. It's over at the Disneyland Hotel. I'm not remembering where it's at. I think it's the Polynesian. But anyways, you've got the Tiki Bar over there, and their drinks went up by a couple dollars to $3. So you've got this Nautilus drink went from $32 to $35. You've got the Zombie, $15 to $17. So it looks like they increased anywhere from $2 to $3 over there. So again, this is not even close to an exhaustive list. It's just a few examples of just expect things to cost, I don't know, a few bucks more here and there, and you won't be surprised by that price increase. So there you go. You're going to have to save, again, I feel like every episode we say this, save a few extra pennies to basically pay for this dang vacation that you have planned. So yeah, price increases. I haven't seen anything on the West Coast yet, but for Disney World, food and drinks are going up. So that brings us to our trip report. I get to share our experience over, during our very short trip down to the park. And yeah, it was really fun. It was actually last weekend, and we actually caught the very last of the Christmas season. It was the last official weekend of Christmas at the parks. But after we got home and, we're on Instagram and on YouTube and stuff, it looked like they actually kept the decorations up for a lot longer. So kind of confused about that. I don't know, maybe they're just like, let them have it for a few more days. So I thought we caught the very last of it, but it looks like it bled into the next week. But yeah, we actually tried something new this time, and we flew in super early on Saturday morning, stayed one night, and then returned late Sunday night. And that's the first time we've done it. And I'm not a morning person, so getting up very early on Saturday, I think we left the house around 5, was a little rough, but it was a good trip. I mean, we go so often that we don't need the full 3-4 days that, most folks do. But yeah, a couple days at the park was a pretty good plan. Again, I did struggle a little bit that first day. When noon hit on Saturday, I was like, dear Lord, I don't know how long I can keep my eyes open. So we did have to take a little rest at the hotel. But other than that, it was a successful trip. So we may do this again because you honestly, you save money on, you don't have to do 2-3 nights at a hotel. You just do one. Food, right? Less time in the park, and also just you don't have to take time off work. It's convenient, and especially since we live so close, it's a quick hour flight. It makes sense to do it that way. So we may try it again. It was semi-successful. I'll just say that. I was very tired, but we still had a good time. But yeah, so let's just go ahead. We had a really good time. It was fun overall. It was a great trip. But of course, there's positives and negatives to a trip, pros and cons. To a Disney trip now. It's just the reality of it. There's always going to be something that goes not to plan, or just something kind of gets wonky in the planning, right? So it is what it is, but let's go over the positive things first. And this was actually surprising. Lines were very reasonable. The longest we waited was like 45 minutes for Guardians of the Galaxy. And yeah, it was amazing. I thought it was going to be super packed. We were going to be waiting an hour and a half to do anything, but it was actually pleasant. It wasn't bad at all. Radiator Springs Racers, it was a stated 65-minute wait. We waited like 40 minutes, and that I honestly think it was closer to 35. And it was not bad at all. It just kept moving, and we did notice, and I will speak to this later in kind of the cons list, we noticed one time, so Radiator Springs Racer, I call it Cars, the Cars ride, we were moving, right? The line was just moving. And then the only reason we probably waited 10 of those 35 minutes was because it just stopped. We just stopped moving for a solid 10 minutes. And I think I know as to why, and I'll speak to that later. Another pro of this trip was the weather was amazing. It was not too hot, not too cold. It was like 65 degrees on Saturday and 70 degrees on Sunday. At nights, it got really cool. So a sweatshirt was needed, but I love the cold weather because we don't get it that much here in California, so that was really nice. And it honestly was a nice break. It's been kind of rainy and cloudy in Sacramento, and it normally isn't. And I'm definitely not complaining because we get like 2 weeks of it, and then it's just hot again. Like right now, it's sunny and like 60, I think the high today is like 66 degrees or something like that, 67. So we don't get a lot of rainy days. So it's been that, though, for like a couple weeks straight. And so going down to SoCal, it was classic Southern California, sunny, and just gorgeous. So that was awesome. So if you're looking for, honestly, the ideal weather, go in January or February because spring, fall, summer, it is just stupid hot down in Southern California. That's because the UV index down there, the sun is just way stronger. So it's just brutal, right? I mean, like 80, 85 degrees in SoCal feels like 90 degrees most places because their sun is so intense. So, little pro tip, go in the wintertime because you think winter, it's going to rain and stuff. It rains like 5 days in SoCal. So I know this year's been an exception, but most years it's like they get 5 days of rain and us Northern California folks have to actually sell them water because they can't produce enough water down there. So we got to sell them all the water from our lakes and stuff. Little factoid for you. But anyways, great weather, and I'll stop talking about weather. But yeah, we actually didn't do much this trip, and it was very relaxing. We maybe only rode 3 rides on Saturday, strolled through the park. I mean, I feel like we're old people already. We're in our 20s going in our 70s because we just enjoyed walking and people watching and eating a snack and getting a coffee and just walking through the park. So that was very, very pleasant. And I think that's I can't think of anything more relaxing than walking through a Disney park with a cup of coffee and a snack or something and just listening to the music, looking at people getting on rides. It's a blast. So yeah, it was fun. I'm glad we missed those crazy lines from the holiday season. I think the weekend before we were looking and it was like a 2.5 hour wait for, I forgot what it was, Cars maybe? So yeah, it just gets crazy down there. So I'm glad we missed most of that craziness. The park was beautifully decorated for Christmas. It was amazing seeing it decorated. Again, it was a little weird going after Christmas. And I mean, after Christmas was like a good 2 weeks after Christmas. So it was weird seeing those decorations up, but it was also really fun because, I don't know, Disney parks during Christmas is insanely magical. So that was really cool. And some of my best memories are from being there during the Christmas season. So that was a fun reminder of how stinking special it is during that time of year. we were able to finally catch the Spider-Man show in Avengers Campus. We've seen all the videos and all the pictures from Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff of Spider-Man flying through the air, and it's that animatronic, and we never caught it when we were down there. I don't know why I just didn't look at the show times on my app. I'm just not used to being on my phone all the time checking show times and stuff because of the pandemic, and also we really don't need the map and stuff anymore. But anyways, I'm not used to checking show times, so we never naturally caught the show. But we were walking, again, our first day, Saturday morning, and I look over and I'm like, why are those people all bunched up over at the entrance of Avengers Campus? And sure enough, it was a Spider-Man show. So we snuck in behind some folks and moseyed our way over to a little spot and watched it. And it's really, really cool. It's an entertaining, little cheesy. I'm not gonna lie, little cheesy show, but the finale is worth waiting for. That flying person / animatronic is so realistic. It's so cool to see. So it's one of those where I'd recommend it if you're walking past and you just happen to come across it. I wouldn't run across the park for it. I wouldn't hop over from Disneyland to DCA to catch it. It's not worth that effort, but it's worth seeing if you're just kind of walking by. Another thing we really enjoyed this trip was eating at Wine Country Trattoria or Trattoria. I don't know how to pronounce it, but let's just call it Wine Country. So when I refer to Wine Country, it's the restaurant over near kind of Ariel's Undersea Adventure. Is that? Yeah, I'm really bad at remembering these things. But yeah, anyways, it's over there in that direction. And it is a fantastic Italian restaurant. It's got this beautiful outdoor seating area. You're kind of elevated from the pathway, so you can look down and see people walking. You can see Pixar Pier really well. So it's just an idyllic, very pretty setting for a restaurant. And we haven't been there in quite a while, since pre-COVID days. And so my wife surprised me with a reservation there for a Sunday lunch. And it was absolutely fantastic. The food is great. The environment is amazing. Again, like I said, you've got the sight lines of Pixar Pier. You've got, really pretty music usually playing. This time it was Festival of the Holidays. Is that what it's called? That festival going on. And so it had a bunch of international music playing. So that was fun. It was more fun, upbeat music this time, but usually there's very relaxing, guitar, piano stuff going on. So it's just a relaxing time. And again, this is, like I mentioned, I'm plugging my own episode, but I mentioned in my top 5 dining experiences episode, how much we enjoy this restaurant. And I did mention in that episode, I'm going to mention it now, it is, I would say, one of the most fairly priced restaurants in the park. And that's because it's priced like a normal, I feel like you're not paying a premium for Disney at this Italian restaurant. It's priced like an Olive Garden, to be honest, maybe a couple dollars more. But other than that, it's, I would say, definitely worth the money. You're not going to be paying stuff like Blue Bayou, right? Perfect example. It's like $42 for a chicken plate. You are not paying that here. It's $17 for pasta. I think I paid $22 because I got chicken in mine. So again, not unfair pricing. So a lot of families eating there, couples. It's the perfect venue to get a decent meal at a reasonable price. So definitely hit that up if you're there. I know I'm jumping around here a little bit. I'm just kind of shouting out just stuff that we really enjoyed, just the highlights of the trip. I think most of you know what a day at Disney looks like, so I'm not going to go play by play of what we did. I find those very boring because you weren't there and you couldn't probably care less about what I did at 9 a.m. versus 10 a.m. at the park. So I'm just going to go and highlight what we enjoyed. So if I'm bouncing around, that's why I'm doing that. But next, we've got, just a little, again, I mentioned this a million times before, I've got celiac disease. So that means no gluten for me. So no, if you wanted just a fistful of flour just to, top your day off, I can't do that. So we went over to Salt and Straw down in downtown Disney for a scoop of ice cream. And I was in line and I'm looking and I'm like, man, they're kind of rubbing the scoops all over the cones and stuff. And I'm like, that's probably going to be a problem because waffle cones, spoiler alert, have gluten in them. So I'm like, oh, maybe I won't get something. So anyways, we walk up and I'm like, hey man, I just want to let you know I've got an allergy. And he's like, oh, what's the allergy? I'm like, oh, gluten. And he was super, super nice and helpful and offered to go in the back and scoop my ice cream from one of their kind of prepackaged pints of ice cream. So they usually sell these retail. So instead of getting a scoop of ice cream, you can go, hey, I'll take it's probably super expensive, $30 pint of ice cream. And so he was like, no, I'll open one up and just scoop it for you because we don't want to cross-contaminate your ice cream. So I thought that was super nice. He was super cool about it. I know some people get annoyed, and I even get annoyed that I have to mention it. I feel bad that people have to do a couple extra steps to serve me, but it's just reality of it. I'd rather not get sick out in my travels. So anyways, he was very nice, and just a shout out for Salt and Straw. If you've got any allergies, they will be super accommodating for you. But side note, that place is stinking expensive now. I don't know if they raised prices recently, but it was like $15 for 2 single scoops of ice cream. So I got a scoop. My wife got a scoop. $15. So again, I don't know if I'm a baby. I don't know if I'm a cheapo, but I find that to be very expensive since you can get a thing of ice cream at Safeway or any of your grocery store for like $3.50 or something like that. So anyways, yeah, just know that it's an expensive spot to get ice cream. It's very good, but expensive. Okay, and then now finally, I'm going to end the good things with a kind of not so bad thing. It's not a pro or a con. It's just hey, notice this for your next trip. Just look out for it. But they're separating lines now. So, at 1 o'clock, you can start park hopping. So if you're over in Disneyland and you've got a park hopper, at 1 o'clock, you can jump over to DCA, California Adventure. So we were doing that. We were going from, what we were doing? We were doing Disneyland to DCA. And we were walking up, and there's a cast member starts yelling, so everyone can hear, hey, right side are first entry and re-entry, and the left side is park hoppers. And I was like, wait, what? Like re-entry? So I was like, what's going on? She goes, yeah, so the right lines, the right side of the ticket booths or the entry, the turnstiles, are for people that it's their first time entering their park for the day, or they're re-entering their original park. It's so confusing. And then the left side are for the park hoppers, the folks that are coming over from Disneyland. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's fine. So we went over to the left side and entered the park, no problem. But that's just a new thing. I've never seen them do that before. I have a feeling it's to filter out the folks that are, how sometimes you get stuck behind the family that it's their first time getting in the park and they're taking pictures because a picture has to be associated with a ticket. So they're taking pictures for the first time. So you've got 7 people getting their picture taken. It takes, 5-10 minutes. So you're the unfortunate, party behind them. You're like, crud, I could have been in the park by now. So I think they're trying to eliminate that by getting folks into lines that are dedicated to those people, and then the park hoppers can just kind of float right on through. So just a side note, but look out for that on your next trip because you might be in the wrong line. All right, so now it's time to go over those not so fun moments that we experienced during our last trip. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, it's bound to happen. It just happens, right? Just expect that some things aren't going to go to plan. So here are those things that happened during our trip. So again, like I mentioned, we flew in very early on Saturday morning. So me not being the morning person and being a night owl, I was, about 11 noon, I was like, I am going to crash. So we went on over, and a little before 11, went over to Fiddler, Pfeiffer, and Practical Cafe, which is Starbucks over in DCA, and wasn't open. Walked up to the doors, and a cast member was there, and he goes, hey, we're actually opening at 11 a.m. today. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Coffee's kind of a morning drink, so kind of weird that they're opening later, but okay, whatever. So went and enjoyed a couple of rides, and then returned around 11 o'clock, and went to go inside, and this time it was another cast member, and she said, yeah, sorry guys, we're not open, and we were planning on opening at 11, but due to some staffing issues, we won't be opening until sometime later today. I can't give you an exact time. And I was like, what the heck? So I don't know what time they ended up opening because we just were like, forget it. We're going to go get coffee at one of the stands, and actually was terrible, so I don't recommend that. I think it's called like the espresso cart or something. It was not good. So, so apparently they're having some staffing issues. So I'm assuming some cast members are calling in sick or something. Has to be. So, and I know this because, again, the next day on Sunday, being the natural thing, you want coffee in the morning. We went to, wait for it, Market House. Little name plug there. Went to Market House on Main Street, and again, that's Starbucks on Main Street in Disneyland. And like the sheep we are, joined the line that was out the door and down Main Street, like near the cinema. Like it was so long. It was way down Main Street. So I'm like, we need coffee. I need coffee, and I don't want to try the Disney coffee again because that was gross. So let's go ahead and get in line because we got to do what we got to do. So we waited in line, and then when we finally got inside, we went into the door and looked, and they only had half of the registers open. So they had 2 registers open for hundreds and hundreds of people. So again, all I can think of is this has to be another staffing issue. It has to be people are calling in sick, and they just don't have enough people to man the cash register. So we waited nearly an hour, like 55 minutes for our coffee. It was a long time. It was like waiting for Indiana Jones, and except the payoff is like you get to spend money. You get to spend $6 for a drink. So that was lame. So keep an eye out for that. Again, I know Disney can't fix sick people. If they could, they'd make even more money, I guess, but that's just what they're running into. I think, again, Omicron's just raging right now. Omicron, I don't know how to pronounce it. People pronounce it different ways, but Omicron, coronavirus, whatever, it's just affecting a lot of people right now. It's going around really, really bad. So just expect some delays with your food, drinks, and rides. There is a rumor, and this is a rumor. Please do not take this, quote me on this. It may be wrong. Some people are thinking that they're shutting down rides because they don't have enough staff to man that ride. So someone did some observation, and each time, I forgot what it was it Indy or one other ride? No, Indy's a bad example. It was another ride. Every single time it went over 60 minutes, they just shut the line down and say, sorry, no more people, and would just shut the ride down for a few hours and then open it back up. So again, I think I don't know if that's true, but there's definitely some staff stuff going on at the park. So just kind of look out for that for your next trip, and just kind of maybe build that into your schedule, and just understand it's just the reality right now. Another food mishap we experienced was Sprinkles, that delicious cupcakes shop down in downtown Disney, ran out of cupcakes at 9 p.m. We walked in, it was 9. They don't close until like 1 a.m. Walked in at 9, and we're like, hey, we're like, okay. And I'm like looking at their menu board, and it's like, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. And that was a little confusing because I'm like, you guys got another 4 hours. You guys are just going to sit here and just say, sorry, we're out, sorry, we're out. And again, I think it's going back to staffing issues because there was like one girl in there just saying, sorry, we're out. So I don't know. I may be connecting dots that aren't there, but I think a lot of people are just experiencing the usual staffing issue. So Disney is not immune to these very frustrating things that happen in life. So again, expect maybe some speed bumps when getting food and drinks in the park. Okay, another thing that wasn't so fun was our hotel accommodation. So we stayed at the Hyatt Place, and this is the one I included in my top 5 hotels in the area episode, which came out a couple weeks ago. And so that episode aged like milk, because let me tell you, we did not have a great experience this time at the Hyatt Place. And again, I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but I think it's staffing issues again, because let me tell you what happened. The first room we were assigned, we walked in. This is when we were like taking the midday break on Saturday, and they texted us saying, hey, your room's ready. So we went over, kicked our feet up, sitting on the couch, and I started hearing this like banging sound from the wall. And it wasn't people, it was like a metallic sound. So I'm like a pipe or something, and it would just like bang every like 5 minutes, maybe. So it was consistent enough to where I'm like, okay, this is happening like every 5 minutes. So it didn't bother me at first, and I'm like, oh, it is what it is. But I'm like, at night, I'm going to be waking up every 30 minutes hearing some like loud banging sounds. So I'm like, this is not going to work. And then we found like, these are minor things. But again, when you're walking into a hotel room and there's a raging virus going on, you're kind of like, I hope it's clean. But we walked in, and like there's trash all over in the bathroom in the corner. And there was like, it's so gross, there was hair all over the shower. And I'm like, so someone didn't clean this very well. So I call down to the front desk. I said, hey, this is what's going on. Loud noise, dirty room. Can we get moved? And she's like, oh, yeah, no problem. So they're super nice. They ended up moving us to the room next door that shares the same wall that we had an issue with. So I was like, oh, God. So sure enough, we walk over to the next room. I sit there for like 6-7 minutes, and it's like bang. And I'm like, hey, so it's got that noise again. Can we move like to another section of the hotel? Oh, yeah, let me see if we've got something available. The only room we have is a like family suite. So it was slightly larger because they had bunk beds in it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll take it. We're not going to use the bunk beds, but we'll take that room. So we take the room. I thought this was it. I thought this was the room that was going to solve all the problems. It was bigger. It didn't have clanging noises from the walls, so it didn't have someone living in the walls apparently, or I don't know. And we are about to crawl into bed, right? We're tired, we're exhausted, my feet hurt, I'm all clean, and I'm like, we got a whole other park day tomorrow. We're flying home tomorrow night. We got a long day. I want to get some rest. I pull back the sheets, and there's like a wad of woman's hair in the bed, like all wrapped up in the sheets. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm a baby. I get really grossed out by that stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So either they're not changing the sheets and just kind of remaking the bed, or it was really, really gross. So I call down, I let them know, going, hey guys, this is our third room, and like, they're not very clean. What can we do here? So they go, we're going to send new sheets up. So they ended up sending sheets up in like 10 minutes, and I have to make the bed at the hotel. And anyways, it is what it is, right? I'm like making a hotel bed. I'm exhausted. I'm angry because I'm just like grumpy from experiencing all this stuff, and we get a decent night's sleep. So, and I did some more research. I don't think it's just this. So it may be unfair to like kind of tag this on the Hyatt Place, like don't stay there. I mean, I wouldn't in the next probably 6 months or so, just because I'm kind of scarred from this last experience. But it doesn't seem to be just that property. I looked up a lot of hotels in that area and actually looked at a lot of YouTube reviews of Anaheim area hotels. And in the last 3 months, there's been a lot of people going, hey, the room was kind of dirty. Our bed was dirty. There was trash all over the place. There was hair in the bathroom. So I think hotels are, again, experiencing that same staffing issue where they're like, hey, 4 people called out. You've got like 8 minutes to clean a room. Just do it the best you can and just move on. So unfortunately, I think that's the reality for a lot of businesses. Disney, Hyatt, Marriott, Hilton, I think it's just affecting everybody. So again, just keep an eye out for it. It's really gross. I mean, hey, if you're spending $150, $200, $250 for a room, you expect it to be somewhat clean, right? So again, I wouldn't say give them too much of a break on it. You want a clean room and enjoy a good night's rest, but maybe look over your room just a little bit and make sure there's not some gross stuff kind of waiting for you. And this brings us to our final not so good thing, and that is, and wait for it, and you're probably waiting for it, and that is Genie Plus. And that shouldn't be a surprise because I have griped about the service this whole time. But again, here we are talking about Genie Plus. We didn't use it. We were actually going to use it, and we didn't feel the need to because I was actually going to buy it for Sunday to test it out and review it and just say, hey, is it worth it? Not worth it? But we were going on rides, and I'm like, I'm waiting 30, 40 minutes for a ride, so I don't need to. I feel like it'd be wasting $40 to test a service I didn't need to use quite yet. We are going to go again in a couple months, so I'll probably test it out there because I feel like it's going to be busier in the springtime because of spring break and all that stuff. So we'll use it then, but I just felt like I didn't need to use it. But even though we didn't use the service, it still affected us. Let me tell you how. The first thing is, and this is a minor complaint, and that is the introduction of Genie Plus into the app has made it very confusing. The app is ugly now, to say the least. There's like these tips that come up, and then you're like, what am I supposed to do with these? And then like your reservations are in a different spot. It's just cluttered. Again, this is a minor complaint, but the app is very cluttered and confusing now. And again, a fairly tech competent person, I had a hard time trying to find the area to even purchase the service. I didn't even know how to buy Genie Plus because I was like, where do I go? So I had to go to the wait times, and then if you were in the wait times, and there was an option to purchase it that was kind of buried in there. So anyways, it's confusing to even buy the service, but the app is just kind of convoluted and messy. Just that's a minor thing. The main thing now is how they're treating lines. And let me tell you, we were standing in the standby line for Guardians. And again, we didn't wait very long, but let me tell you why we even waited a chunk of those minutes. When you reach the cast member, so when you go through the line and then you reach the cast member that stands right in front where the 2 pre-show rooms are. So it's kind of hard to explain. It splits right there. So right when you get to that point is where the Genie Plus and standby lines meet. So you've got a cast member there saying, okay, how many in your party? You guys go ahead to the left or right, and then they'll stop the standby and then move to Genie Plus and whatever. So right when we got to that person, she was letting in one party from standby, no matter if it was one person, 4 people, 2 people like my wife and I, and then they would fill in the rest of that pre-show with Genie Plus. So you've got Oh my God. It was, again, the standby line was moving until apparently return time started for Genie Plus. And then right when that happened, the line just froze. And you would literally inch up every couple minutes. So I feel like, again, I know why they're doing it. And that is because people are paying now for Genie Plus. So you look at FastPass days, there was a mix, right? They let let's say 30 people in from standby and then 70 people in from FastPass. And that's expected because you're going, okay, those people got a return time. I'm in the standby line and that's the expectation. I'm waiting a little longer. But now with Genie Plus, they're going, now these people are paying $20 a head to use the service. There's a different level of expectation. So you've got them going, okay, 2 people from standby, and then now 125 or whatever, or 98 people from Genie Plus. Now another 4 people from standby, 96 people from Genie Plus. So it is way out of balance now. You've got standby lines now, I think, for, again, those popular rides, like a Guardians, like a Cars, and maybe on a more popular weekend, I can definitely see myself standing there for 90 minutes, 100 minutes, while Genie Plus is, again, a 2-minute wait. And I understand, I get it, but I think there's a more fair way of doing that split, right? That combination of standby to Genie Plus. I think 70% Genie Plus, 30% standby is more than fair, right? You get less wait time at Genie Plus, but it's not obscenely out of whack. I just feel like this is so out of proportion, it's silly, and you're going to make a lot of people that paid, again, maybe they didn't pay the $20 a day for their family or per person per day, right? But they paid thousands of dollars to be there, and you should treat them as a somewhat equal, right? These people didn't pay $1,000 to skip the line. They paid $20, and $20 adds up, right? Per person per day for a party of 5. That's a lot of money. But again, it's not like they paid for like the, what do you call it? The private tour guide, right? That's like $6,000. And again, what's the point of doing a private tour guide at this point? I can just do Genie Plus and I get treated almost the same, which I find crazy. So anyways, that's the new program, and it is what it is. That's our new reality. I'm going to stop griping at some point. I just have to, because that's just that's just the new thing, and we're going to have to get used to it. But I think the new mix of Genie, standby line, and how they mix those two, once those two lines meet, is just simply unfair and bizarre. So just look out for that. Again, if you're in the standby and you see the line come to a screeching halt, you'll know why. And that's, I think, what happened at Cars. That's what I was alluding to earlier, was that when we froze at Cars for like 15 minutes and I was looking around going, what the heck's going on? That's because there was a giant return time window for Genie Plus holders, pass holders, and they were able to go through like willy-nilly, like, oh, here, 1,000 people, go right on ahead. We'll just stop standby for 15 minutes. So again, look out for that. I'll stop being so negative. Overall, we had a really good time. It was a fun time, a couple hiccups, like I mentioned, but for the most part, Disney is Disney. It's still magical. It's still a really good time. So don't think it's all bad. Again, if you went off Twitter, Instagram, some of the YouTubers, you'd think it was like hell on earth, right? Like you'd be like, oh my God, it's the worst place to be right now. I'd rather be at the DMV than at Disneyland. That's not true. So, and again, I fall victim to this too, is focusing on the bad, the negatives of the park. So overall, had a good time, and it's definitely worth going if you can get a trip scheduled. And that brings us, guys, to the end of our episode. Thank you so much. I know I rambled a little bit. Hopefully you made it till the end here. Thanks so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram over at Market House Podcast, and you'll actually see some pictures from our last trip there, and we'll continue to post from that trip. And thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time. Have a great week.